Maybe don't know.
This time, next time to build. This 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 time power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power.
What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Chris Hampton.
And this is Nate Drolet.
And together we have 1 million downloads.
Boom.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Freaking million. MFN million. I'm trying not to curse it for at least the first 3 minutes of the podcast.
Okay. No promises
Just
on
to
my end.
make people with their children happy.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't promise that'll last past minute 3 because, you know.
They need all the happiness they can get, Chris.
Well, these things are real, so I'm just not a happy dude all the time. Sometimes I gotta curse. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, 1 million downloads. It's kind of strange to even think about. You know, when this thing started, it was like, I mean, you remember what the first episodes were like. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna keep doing this.
Yeah, the intro to every episode. Well, we're just gonna see what's happening.
Yeah, and it just seemed like a lot of work, which it is. It was, and it is. But I just really valued having these conversations, you know, and I think it's cool to see other people valuing them and latching on and getting excited about it.
Yeah.
So somebody out there, I don't know who, is sharing this thing because it's continuing to grow. Like our monthly average has doubled in the past 4 months, 5 months.
Which is rad. Thanks to all of y'all.
Yeah, super cool. And Nate and I kind of wanted to sit down for the, millionth download party here with our tea and water.
I was going to say big party. We've got our laptops been working all morning, drinking.
We just had a wasabi
and water.
Kit Kat. That's a party.
Big day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We shared a miniature wasabi Kit Kat because we're both on that send grind right now.
Yeah.
But we wanted to sit down and just tell all of the new people and the people who've been here for a while, like what this thing is, why we do it, and what else we do, and how you can support, and how much we appreciate you. Because, like I said, it's kind of crazy. We just do this thing because we want to hear ourselves talk a lot, and people also want to hear us talk a lot, which is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've never really stopped to take the time to really discuss this. It's something, you started and you're like, hey, I'm just going to keep going till the wheels fall off.
Yeah. And I assumed the whole world just knew, but then our listenership doubled. So I'm like, oh, there were at least twice as many people who didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
No, really the whole thing started because I was like, I had a background in audio. So I had the equipment and I was getting to have these cool conversations. I was going to these festivals and these events and talking to people, having really cool conversations. And I'm like, why don't I record this? And when I first started, I was like, I need to figure out how to record this over the phone. And then I'm like, this sucks. I hate trying to figure out how to record it over the phone. So I just decided I'm going to do them all in person. And I liked that about the Enormocast, which was already happening. I like that Chris did all of his conversations in person. They just seem like a much nicer, more organic conversation. You're not like waiting for the other person to stop talking so you can talk. You can read each other.
Yeah, no, I think it really shows. And I really appreciate these conversations too, because obviously you have a lot of these conversations when I'm not around.
You're always in my heart, Nate.
Perfect. But yeah, we all kind of live in bubbles to some degree. And, up until the other night, I had never met Lantian Chu. I was like fangirling so hard when we were at the Thai food restaurant and she showed up. Yeah. But because I love that conversation. That's a conversation I never would have had or experienced. Yeah. So I thought that podcast was amazing. And so it was pretty cool to finally get to meet her. But with so many of these, you got to go sit in Dan John's house and talk with him.
I know. That's just
Like,
crazy.
Yeah.
I already cursed. I don't know if 3 minutes are up or not. But.
But yeah, like it's really cool because these are, we all live in our own little bubbles and there's a lot of things we can gain from that, but it's really cool when you get to kind of see outside of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, even, as someone, I'm a part of a lot of these podcasts, but with all the others, I'm super appreciative that these conversations are available.
Yeah. If you had to strike the Lanti and Chu and Dan John episode from the records, what would be your new favorite? And the board meeting. Board meetings don't count in this.
What? Okay. Board meeting. Trevor would be pretty high. Man, ravioli biceps.
That was a fantastic one.
He's a homie from back in the day, and it was really fun getting to hear all about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was cool. And that's one of the things I really love about this is being able to have the unexpected conversations. Like I knew I was going there to have a conversation. And part of what makes that possible is the support from everybody out there, because I can't justify driving, 12 hours round trip to Denver to get to the airport, to buy a ticket, to fly to Vegas, to have a conversation.
To stay in a really sketchy hotel.
To stay in a really sketchy hotel and invite Bill Ramsey over. There's no way I could justify doing that if it weren't for the fact that people are supporting and people expect me to come with cool conversations. And so I went into that episode not really knowing what I was going to get. Like I had never met him, and all I knew about him really was he's the only person to do all the moonboard benchmarks. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I think that's probably an interesting place to start. So let's see what's up with this dude. Yeah. So being able to go into those conversations means a lot to me, and the support that provides that. So, and I'm glad people find it interesting.
Yeah, and hopefully helpful as well.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of these episodes have helped shape my training and my climbing and just perspective in general.
Yeah, I don't know if I could pick a favorite actually.
I thought of another one. The Miguel one is pretty high up.
Oh yeah, the Miguel one's great.
And that one's like, I mean, you and I have both known Miguel for, I think I've known him for 12 years. Yeah. And so that one definitely holds like a special place for me.
Yeah, totally. I don't know what would be my favorite, man. There's so many cool moments. Like the Brian Anthony's episode.
Oh yeah.
Was amazing.
The Mina one. Her talking about her dad.
Yeah.
Man.
And the pictures her mom drew.
Yes. Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, just too many. Like I feel like I'm like hitting one of my kids in the face with a hammer if I don't say it. So
let's start with our least favorite right now. Say it. Let's go on record.
Least favorite. Board meeting. No, I'm kidding.
No.
And those are another thing, the board meetings. Like, where did those even come from? How did we...
I really liked the name board meeting, and I was like, we have to do something with this. And I think maybe you came up with the idea.
And I remember the night, was it after we recorded our first one? Or was it after we talked about the concept that I made the logo in the middle of the night? Because I was like...
It may have been that, yeah. It may have been...
We were staying at my daughter's house in Cincinnati. And I remember laying on the couch at like 2 a.m. working on the logo because it was exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the board meetings are a cool contrast, juxtaposition. We get to dive into a topic pretty deep and talk about it from a coach's perspective, you know, what we're seeing, instead of trying to tease out the things that make people an expert at what they do or that have informed people's experience. We get to just dig into these topics.
Yeah. I think it's great because we can because you can learn so much from other people. And I mean, a lot of what we apply in the board meetings is what we learn from other people as well. But this kind of lets us say, hey, here's some actionable bullet points. We're going to get just pretty much right to the point. And really dig on topics that we enjoy. And it's in a way that we can subliminally force all our clients to do what we want.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, if you're one of our clients and you think a board meeting's speaking to you, it
probably is.
Yeah.
We probably talked about you for 20 minutes before we recorded the episode.
Exactly.
And after, most likely. Do you know how many board meeting topics we have listed in our shared folder?
How many we have ahead of us?
Yeah.
A lot. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. It's a lot.
I feel like it has to be over 60.
For sure. It's something like early on we were like, what are we going to talk about? I don't know. And the ideas were slower to come, but now that we've got this shared folder, we can both just like drop in ideas whenever they pop up, and it's just getting longer and longer and longer and longer. And I used to be afraid that I would run out of topics to talk about or
same.
interesting people to talk to, but with our list of board meetings, and just last night or 2 nights ago at dinner, my wife asked us, who was on the dream list to talk to.
Yeah.
And we just kept naming people. Like, there's so many interesting people with interesting stories who have some expertise in some area that I really want to learn from. That it could go on forever.
Yeah.
Top of the dream list, though, Mike Tyson.
No question.
Got to get Mike on. No, Mike Tyson, Tony Hawk, Rodney Mullen. Those are like the 3 big dream guests.
Yeah.
And then there's lots of climbers too.
Mm-hmm. And them.
I mean, one of my like one of the guests I really wanted to talk to, I'm not going to say it was a dream guest necessarily, but somebody I really wanted to talk to will be the next episode coming out Monday.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah. And it wasn't the conversation I imagined having initially. But I think it did go a long way toward building a rapport that will lead to future more in-depth conversations. And this was a great conversation, don't get me wrong, but it didn't go into him as much as a film of his that's coming out. So,
okay.
Yeah. So, and that's one of the reasons I do this thing, because there's so many aspects of people to talk about. Like I don't want to have Mina on the podcast and talk about her entire history as a climber, everything she does.
Yeah.
And then not have something to talk to Mina about the next time I see her. I would rather be able to have 10 episodes with Mina.
Totally.
Are you listening, Mina? 9 more to go. 8 maybe, technically. So
no, and I think that's a great way to do it. Like, really dive into these individual facets.
Yeah.
Because everyone, I mean, it doesn't matter what level someone's climbing at. Everyone's got unique stories and really cool things that they can contribute.
Yeah. You have any climber dream guests that you would love to see on here?
Oh, Mikey Williams.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
I think that was a good suggestion.
Yeah, Mikey's on it for sure.
Mikey's. I hadn't even really thought about Mikey as a guest, partly because he's so thin that he's invisible and I just can't see him. But yeah, I think he's a fantastic example of like really pushing to the edges of your capabilities.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say there, Mikey, is that you'll probably never get stronger.
No, not a chance. I'd like to have a drunk history episode with Jerry Moffat.
Oh man, that would be amazing.
Like, that would be maybe a whole series.
We should get all the Brits together to do just a bunch of drunk British history. Or even better, drunk American history.
Drunk, told by them.
Yeah, told by the Brits.
So tell us, Jerry and Ben, like, how did you perceive progress in the United States going with climbing?
I would love to hear that.
Please don't hold anything back. Yeah. So those are my 2 highest on the list.
It could happen.
Drunk climbing history and Mikey Williams.
It could definitely happen. And, like I mentioned already, the support from people, not only the listening and downloading it, but people have obviously told other people about it. People aren't just finding it in the ether. And I want to let people know that that's probably the best way to support this thing. We have other options too, but if you can share it with your friends, like it doesn't matter if it's social media, mention an episode at the crag, turn it on in the car on the way to the crag with your friends, whatever. Grab their phone and subscribe them, whatever it is, sharing it goes a really, really long way.
Also, I don't know. I wish I would have looked up who this was, but shout out to the guy who was competing in a finals.
Oh yeah,
and
with the ravioli biceps episode,
and had the ravioli biceps episode come on for his finals song.
Yeah, amazing,
legend. Yeah, We'll have to look up his name at some point, but yeah. I gotta say, everyone else who thinks they're a fan, like, you got tough competition.
Yeah, he pretty much took it to a whole nother level. I think that's a ravioli biceps fan, though.
Yeah, I mean, but
hopefully
who
we won him over with the podcast and he listens to the other episodes. But if you're gonna be a fan of a climber, ravioli biceps is a pretty good one.
Yeah,
that was cool. And the sharing of a podcast, like for me, as someone who puts out the podcast, is really difficult. It's not easy on social media to share a podcast like it is a blog post. You can't just click it and go read it, click it and go listen to it. You have to go through some other channels, like get on your podcast app and download the thing. So it's a lot of work to share it around. So you telling your friends about it is for sure the best way to keep this thing moving.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have been, apparently, so I appreciate that massively.
Yeah, thanks to all of y'all.
Yeah. You can also leave reviews. I know that's also a time-consuming thing. It used to be a nightmare to do. It is easier in your podcast app if you have an iPhone. Now you can just go to the show and leave a review. So that's
nice.
That's nice. Either 5 stars. We don't do that 4-star bullshit around here.
No.
No, actually, leave as many stars as you want. Some people are haters on the reviews, and I'm totally fine with that. Some of them are good, constructive haterisms.
Totally.
I remember years ago, this was pre-podcast. This is back in just the blog days. I happened across, and I don't even know how I happened across it. Maybe it was after I did an Ask Me Anything on Reddit, and somebody on Reddit had mentioned that the Power Company blog was just becoming a place for product reviews. And it was. Like I had told a bunch of companies I would review their stuff. They had all sent them, and then I just didn't have time to post blogs. So like 6 in a row became product reviews. And the dude called me out on it. And as soon as I read it, I was like, whoa, this dude is right. Like, no more product reviews. And since then, I haven't really done any. 1 or 2 over the last, 6 years or something.
Yeah.
So, sometimes I appreciate the haters.
Yeah.
Some of you are just haters, and what you're saying is ridiculous, but but some of you are constructive, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're always looking to get better.
Yeah. Patreon. That's the other way.
Yeah.
Like this thing partially runs. I can go have these in-person conversations because it's hard, frankly, to buy tickets, to travel to places, to schedule the time with somebody for us both to be able to sit down for an hour and a half or 2 hours and have these conversations. That's made almost entirely possible at this point because I have to convince my wife that it makes sense for me to go travel for 2 days to have an hour-long conversation. That partly happens because of the people who are patrons, and frankly, I've said this the last 5 episodes, so I know it rings very hollow, but we haven't done a good job of keeping up with the patron-only podcast, but there are a bunch of episodes over there. We do have more planned. I use the word plan loosely here, but we do appreciate everybody over there who's a patron, and it's you guys. You guys are the reason this thing continues to run, frankly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd have to say monetarily it's not worth it to keep trying to have these conversations. And then it would be all board meetings, which a lot of people would be totally fine with. But lastly, all the other things we do here at Power Company. If you're new to this and you just found us through the podcast, we're not just a podcast. We do lots of other things, and that stuff helps support this, whether it's our products, apparel, or our coaching services, which is kind of the heart of what we do here.
Yeah.
And that's how you came on board.
Yeah, I came in as a coach.
Do you remember the conversation?
We were having pancakes.
We were.
I was looking to start a similar type business, and I had been working on it for a few months. And it's funny. So I think you had started Power Company like 2 months before we had this conversation. And man, I just completely stopped working on it. Because at that time I was like, I didn't think anyone else was doing a good job in that industry. So I was like, cool, this is what I want to do. And I remember you announcing that that's what you were doing. And I was just like, fuck, man.
Like, there are only 6 people out there who want this.
Yeah, exactly. It was one of those things that like, I was like, man, I have a lot of respect for Chris. And this is someone who, if someone was going to go out and do a really great job, this is it. And I pretty much told you that exact thing on that when we were eating pancakes. And you were like, man, I already have more people than I can handle, like just basically from day one. So if you want to coach. And yeah, it was kind of all downhill from there.
Yeah. In the Miguel's parking lot.
Yeah.
Where all sorts of downhill ideas get spread around.
Yes.
Yeah. And it just has kept growing, like, which is kind of cool. We now have 3 other coaches besides you and I. So shout out to Blake and Paul and Jess, all in Chattanooga. And we have Dale doing data work, and that's going to explode pretty soon, I think.
Yeah.
And then I've also got Lana, who, if you've sent in a contact form on the website, you've talked to, a lot of you know Lana through email correspondence. And then also just recently hired another girl, Brittany, who's helping me with some projects. First of which is a book that's coming out either end of this year or beginning of next. We're almost done with it. Just created the cover the other day, which is amazing.
He's very excited about it.
I'm very excited about this cover. So yeah, we've got a team here, and it's cool to see it growing like this. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. We're just kind of making all this shit up as we go. But it seems to be working, and I think that's cool. Coaching wise, what's been your favorite moments or biggest takeaways from the last several years of coaching?
Oh man, I've had so many. I get really excited when my clients like succeed, like to the point to where sometimes I feel more invested in them than in my own climbing.
Is that something you expected?
No, like not really. Yeah. I mean, like I knew I would be invested in them and be excited, but I had one year where I had a client named Kat who she sent her first 513, and I was like busy climbing and having like a great day of climbing when I got the text from her, and man, that was like put me over the moon. I was like, this is awesome. Yeah, like so psyched. And I was more excited for her to do that than I think for like any of my own sends that year.
Yep, that's one of the most surprising things for me about this whole thing has been I get as much, at least, joy out of watching other people succeed or seeing light bulb moments in people at workshops, when something clicks and I see their face light up and they're like, now I get it. Yeah. People have been saying this for years, but now I understand it. Those moments are really cool.
Yeah. And also like getting to meet all these other people, through consultations, workshops, and personal clients. Like I've gotten to work with 3 different people who've swam in the Olympic trials. Right. Like I may think I have a few things to offer when it comes to climbing progress, but these are fucking elite athletes. Like they have a whole life before this. And that like, I love getting to pick their brains. I'm like, no, please like tell me more about this. Like, and it's great. And it's cool. Like so many people that I get to work with have these really unique stories and backgrounds that, I get to learn just as much from them as they do from me.
Yeah.
So I think it's really, really cool with that. And, and we meet people at workshops who they're like, hey, I drove in from across the state. Like I've been listening to y'all forever, like used your ebook. It worked great for me. I just wanted to come out and like get to meet y'all.
Yep.
And that's rad, man. Like
It's very cool.
Yeah. I feel really, really fortunate for all of that.
And I have to say that, you just brought up doing these workshops and, I think that was one of the coolest things we've done. It's not a super sustainable model.
No.
Because it's really hard. It's hard on us. It's hard on our people, and it's just tough to pull off. But doing these, like, we're just going to drive state to state to state.
Load up in the car, drive for a few months.
Yeah, hit a bunch of gyms all along the way, do workshops, meet a bunch of people. I really love that. I think that's super fun. It's you and I got to really know each other in the car.
Oh yeah. That was pretty much, it's funny. I tell people all the time that like, we pretty much like kind of knew each other.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, like let's go on this huge road trip together.
Yeah.
And we both just like loaded in your car. And that was kind of us really getting to know each other for the first time. And fortunately, it worked out great.
Yeah, we both can eat the same meal over and over and over.
That's what I tell everyone as well. For anyone who hadn't heard this story, like I was cooking breakfast for this whole trip, and first day I was like, "Hey, Chris, I'm gonna make some veggie burritos with some meat in it. You want is that cool with you?" He was like, "Yeah." It's like, "Okay." Next day, Chris, I'm gonna make some burritos again. Is that cool with you? He's like, "Yeah." It's like, "Okay." Like third day, I was like, Chris, I'm going to keep making these burritos until you tell me to stop. I think we ate burritos for 2 straight months.
Yeah. I could still eat them every day. It doesn't bother me in the slightest.
Still do.
Yeah.
But I feel like that kind of set the tone for a lot of the trip. Just, all right.
Yeah. And, those trips, we spent a lot of time in the car talking. We listened to an audio book and would stop it after every chapter and discuss the chapter. And, that's continued throughout the whole thing. There are a lot of times this morning, for instance, I'm in there cooking breakfast and you're over here working and 3/4 of the way through the conversation, I'm like, we should have had the fucking microphones on this whole time. We have so many interesting conversations, like digging into our own personal ideas about coaching or climbing or progression or training or whatever, and playing devil's advocate, asking each other's questions, trying to make each other think more about these ideas we've already settled on,
Yeah.
And I find that super valuable. If it was just me and my own little vacuum, it wouldn't be what it is for sure.
Oh, I feel the exact same. I mean, yeah, like that conversation we had this morning, like I feel so fortunate that I can say, hey, here is something that I think is cool and valuable, and like I can trust you enough to say I want you to try and poke holes in this idea, and I know that if you're going to critique it, it comes from like a good place of wanting to help me make my thoughts better.
Yep.
And that's really cool. Like I feel really fortunate for
it
that.
Mostly just comes from me wanting to be right.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how it presents itself.
Yeah, I'm glad
helping.
I have this illusion in front of me.
No, and that's sort of carried over into working with clients too. Like they hear us on the board meetings talking, and they hear the podcast, and then they feel okay asking these questions or challenging assertions or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that incredible.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, we're talking about the cover of the book. I sent the cover of the book to one of my longtime clients, and the cover, the subtitle had the word easy in it. And he's like, is it easy or is it simple? Because I've always known you to give simple ways to progress, but I don't find them very easy. And I was like, you're right.
Yeah.
So we switched it. Like being able to get that feedback from people is massive. And I think it starts with us both being open to it on the podcast, listening to other people, listening to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So And you know what else? That's just brings up another idea before we move on here. But the fact that a lot of people have trusted me to have really tough conversations on this podcast means a lot to me. You know, whether it's Shelma or Savvy or Brown Girls Climb or Mina, you know, talking about tough to discuss subjects isn't easy for me. And they allow me to come in uncomfortably, and we can both be uncomfortable together trying to have these conversations. You know, that's been a huge win that I felt like, I don't know if I should do this. I don't know how the people listening are going to react. But it's something I want to do. So ultimately I'm going to do it. And the reaction was great. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's super awesome. I mean, and actually this is mildly tangential, but as far as podcasts I really enjoyed, but the Lee Smith and Drew Mack one.
Oh yeah.
They talk about mentorship. I mean, I kind of got a little teary-eyed at one point in that. Like,
oh yeah, I did for sure.
It got pretty heavy.
Yeah. I don't know if it was in the podcast or after the podcast. Drew was like, dude, you're crying. I was like, shut up, Drew.
Yeah, no, it was good. And I feel super fortunate because I've known both of those guys for a long time, but it was really cool to have them like open up and share that. Yeah, because I mean, there were some kind of like intimate things with that. Like, I mean, shit, some things I wouldn't have shared, like, or I wouldn't have been comfortable sharing.
Yep.
So yeah, I thought that was really great. That was awesome. Like, that's amazing that they were willing to share that.
Yeah, totally. And those dudes are both good friends, you know, and shout out to both of them. And Drew. Drew and I are starting up our second round of the Red River Pump Prep program. It's really hard to say.
Yes.
Like, still, I haven't gotten any better at saying it. Pump Prep program. Starting that up on Monday as well. And we're just excited about how that thing went the first time. The people who did it were really, really stoked. Drew was stoked. I feel lucky to be able to help Drew out. Like, I think he's one of the most inspiring young athletes coming up.
Yeah.
You know, really very willing to engage with the community. Like at Rocktoberfest this year, that dude signed posters for like 7 hours straight.
Oh man.
Like, just a line of people constantly. And people love the dude, and it's for good reason. You know, he's a super genuine human. So I feel lucky to be able to help him out a little and to partner with him in this thing. You know, he's had some really great input and insights in it. So
yeah, I'm excited to see how it keeps continuing.
Yeah. And that runs Monday. So buy in, people.
Boom.
You know, you've got some clients who've been having some big wins.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a little bit about that. Give a shout out to our clients. We don't do that nearly enough. Things just get so busy here. People don't want to spray.
That's a big one. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm super excited. I just smashed this thing. And I'm like, cool. Like, and they're like, but don't tell anyone.
Yeah, don't tell anybody.
They're like, I'm not even telling anyone. Like, you know, and there's this, I don't know. Yeah. There's this like kind of weird humility thing in climbing. Like, this idea that
I lack that entirely.
What was it? I think it was C.S. Lewis who said, humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less.
Yeah.
And I think
I like that.
In climbing, I feel like it kind of is a little bit backwards. Like, a lot of times people are just like, oh, you know, I put 3 years into it, but it's whatever. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey man, like, get excited. Like, you're
Totally.
like, and not only that, a lot of people want to be excited for you. Like,
Yep.
you know, I mean, it's like when some of my clients like will send me a text and be like, hey, I just hung the route, and I'm over here just like dancing. I'm like, yes, this is awesome. Like, you know, people love, like, the people in your life like supporting you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, that's advice I got from Dan Chancellor from So Ill a long time ago about Power Company. You know, I had put something out. I don't even remember what. And he sent me a text and was like, keep giving people ways to support you. You know, they'll keep supporting. And I think you have to do that as a climber too. And, you know, shout out to the guys at So Ill for supporting us hugely through all this. You know, that community's been amazing. But I think you have to do that. Like, people want to support you. They want to see your accomplishments. They want to hear the hard work you've put in to reap the reward. And if you don't tell them, you're giving them less, you know?
Yeah.
So
No, absolutely. You know, I don't think it's necessary. Like, just because you did something and you said you did it, that doesn't make it spray.
no,
Like,
not at all.
you know, you're allowed to be proud of your achievements.
Totally. That's why we work toward things,
Yeah. Hell yeah, dude.
because we want to do them.
Yeah.
You know? So
Yeah, and even if you're doing it for yourself, it's like, don't be selfish. Other people like being happy for you.
yep.
So yeah, I'm going to give a couple shout outs. We normally don't do these because when we record board meetings, it could be months or
Years.
until they come out.
Yeah.
So it would be kind of weird and out of order if we did. But shout out to Chris and Brian, both for sending their first several V10s. Sean Patton for doing his first 2 13Bs in the same month.
Yeah.
No knee bars either, real
no
ones.
knee bars.
Um,
We're going to have to do an episode on knee bars and knee pads.
Jeez. Erica for sending her first 7B.
Nice.
Obviously outside of America because we don't have 7Bs here. Arak
7B Boulder.
7B Boulder, thank you.
Yeah.
Arak, Caleb, Brian, and Nick, all for the first 513s. Dana for their first 514. And Patrick's first V8, which was huge for a guy who he spends most of his year up in Alaska.
Yeah.
Just like plugging away in training, man. It's just like
No excuses, man.
just him. His first year we worked together, he just had a hangboard and weights.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Can you train me for 8 months?" I was like, "I mean, I can. Are you gonna?" I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, you're
like,
going to be bored.
man, but what a boss for sticking it out.
Yeah, no doubt.
And very last one, shout out to Eddie Avalone, my very first client.
Yeah.
I don't work with him currently, but you know, we're good buddies, and I like to think I changed him for the better.
Oh, you definitely did.
But he's had just an amazing season.
Yeah.
Busy guy as a doctor, and you know, he had a nice little window of time off and weather and smashed. Sent
Yeah.
2 long-term projects, Swing Line 13D and Omaha Beach 14A.
Yeah.
You know,
And his wife, Rachel's just about to crush her rig too. So,
and we give her enough training advice. I'm pretty sure we get credit for that.
we just had a funny conversation this year at the Red at the Solar Collector because there were several power company people there, and Rachel was there wearing a power company shirt. And I'm like, well, we don't really train Rachel.
We tell her what to do.
We tell her what to do. I don't know that she believes any of it.
No, she gets angry with us. But yeah, and actually, I guess just shout out to everyone who like works hard and busts their ass. Because
Yeah.
like, man, I've gotten to work with so many awesome people, and frankly, like sometimes life gets in the way, weather gets in the way, like, you know, and hard work doesn't turn into performance. Like
Yep.
you can go to the Red for 2 weeks and get rained on every day. You could have been in the best shape of your life and done everything right, and you know what? Sometimes you don't come away with a win.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. In fact, I have I was going to say short list, but it's not really a short list of people who've had some of those experiences, whether it's life experience or a weather thing happens or trips fall apart or whatever, but they keep plugging away, they're just super dedicated all the time, you know, and frankly, I think that's the hardest thing to do if you don't have big giant wins.
oh yeah,
You know, they have lots of small wins along the way, and they allow those to be the motivation and the momentum to keep going. Meg, who's been a long-time client, you know,
early morning grinder.
and, you know, she just keeps at it no matter what. Doesn't get much time to go outside, but keeps at it. Michelle, Thierry, Lucas, Shock, these are all people who just keep grinding no matter what. Tyler, Becky, Yasmin, just grinders, absolute grinders. And I appreciate that massively. You know, there have been some big wins too. My friend Scott has been winning massively this season.
It's been a great season
Just
for him.
crushing. It's cool to see. Herman climbed his first 514.
Nice.
Crushed it out of state, you know, just taking trips to mini traction, the thing by himself.
Oh, that's rad.
And did it. Relatively new client, Senya, recently crushed some things. I've got 2 Abbeys that are crushing.
Nice.
Matt, who's been a client for a long time, crushing rigs all over the world. I think he climbed on, I don't even know how many countries last year, 70 different countries last year, something ridiculous. I think he climbed on every continent last year. That might be wrong.
Like all 7?
I think so.
Whoa.
Something like that. He travels a lot.
Okay.
So it's cool to see that you can keep up that travel schedule and still climb harder.
Yeah.
And when I said, hey, maybe we need to buckle down and just do some training for a little while instead of constant sampling, he went right for it. So
that's awesome.
It's cool to see. And then I've got 2 that are kind of special shout outs. 3. So Kim and Graham, who Canadian crushers, I'm not working with them currently, but we worked together for a long time and they've moved on to some cool opportunities. Just big supporters and really dedicated.
Yeah.
It's tough to find high level climbers who will allow you to change their whole approach and just be really dedicated. So it was cool to watch that. And then Teal, who is, I think she's 28 weeks pregnant right now, 27 or 28, something like that, and still crushing. Like her max hang weight has gone up consistently.
Weird.
While she's, in the midst of a pregnancy, and she's still crushing boulders. And I mean, the belly's starting to get in the way of things, but she's still doing pull-ups on the 6 millimeter crimps. And
I saw that was kind of
just
wild.
Crush her, she's got every excuse, every reason.
I'd be taking them.
She could just sit there and eat ice cream and be fine with it, but she's crushing.
Yeah.
And then Chris Kalous, the Enormocast Kalous.
Okay.
He reached out to me and was like, hey, I think I might want to try this training thing. I've got a kid. I'm busy. And I'm like, yeah, but you hate gyms.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. But he's really embraced it and
cool.
Getting into the gym a lot. And he gets excited about like moonboard projects. And, he's embracing this new thing. That's tough to do when you're as old as he is, which is approximately the age of dirt. So I think it's super, super cool to see.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
Yeah, and I dig getting to see all these wins from people, whether it's process-based in the gym. I've got a guy, John, who is just a gym climber. That's all he wants to do. He's not really interested in going outside. Moved to a new gym and a new country and just picked right up where he was, embraced bouldering because he wanted to be a sport climber in the gym, and is having these big wins bouldering, super cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love seeing it. And, we would love to hear more about what kind of big wins, little wins, small progressions, whatever everybody's having,
Yeah, no, that's one thing I love whenever people reach back out to me months later and they'll say, hey, like, I felt like one of the most common ones I'll get, like 6 months later, people will be like, I was rooting on my project. Like I felt it. Like, we may have worked together for 3 months, but like everything they continued to do afterwards, they were like, this like set the stage for me. Man, I love getting to hear like progress stories later on.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And frankly, it doesn't matter to me whether that progress, achievement, whatever is gym, outside.
Yeah.
Just in your mindset. Man, I don't care. Whatever it is.
No, totally.
That's a win.
Yeah.
And that's cool. Tag us in the Instagram photos and I'll happily spray for you so you don't have to do it. I'm a spray machine.
Yes.
So yeah, I think we should just wrap this up and get out of here because we're just taking up a bunch of time talking about ourselves. But one more time, man, I appreciate the support from everybody and keep sharing this thing along. The more people, the better. And I watch those damn download numbers. Anytime we're getting close to a big number or a big, milestone, I start watching the numbers and crunching the numbers and seeing how much we're averaging. And it's just cool to see that line keep going up and up and up and up and up. Like our monthly average right now is 4 times higher than it was 2 years ago, which is dope.
Yeah. That's super cool.
Yeah, I attribute it all to Drew Mack.
Mm-hmm.
But, look for us, support us however you can, however you want to, share it. You can find us at powercompanyclimbing.com if you're interested in training programs or apparel or any of our other products, books coming out, things like that. You can find us at Power Company Climbing on the Facebooks and on the Instagrams, and you can tag us on there, and we will share your wins on our posts. And you can please mention us on Twitter. Share the podcast around Twitter. We will appreciate it, but I will not be able to say thank you because I won't know, because we don't tweet. We scream like eagles.
This time, 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 this time,